A person doesn't get enough sleep for years, gets up 2 to 4 times at a night and considers this normal. He just waves his hand. Age, they say, what can you do? Well, it's not age. Your body has a specific mechanism that should turn off the kidneys at a night almost completely, literally ordering them. Stop, the master is sleeping. And in most people after 50, this mechanism is not broken. It is simply blocked every evening by the same action that you perform without even noticing. So, our night watchman sounds the alarm every hour and a half. Why? What scares him so much? The answer does not start in the bladder. It starts much earlier, in your brain, in a tiny gland the size of a pea that controls the entire water balance of your body. Today I will show you a mechanism that most people do not know at all, although it is the one that controls your sleep every night. Do you know what the strangest thing is? A healthy person should urinate less at night than during the day. Significantly less. This is not an assumption, it is physiology. And if the opposite is happening in you, it means one thing: the system is broken. Let us figure out where exactly. In deep in your brain is the hypothalamus. This tiny structure is smaller than a walnut, but it controls your entire body's water balance. Every evening, as it gets dark and you're getting ready for bed, the hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland, which releases a special substance into the blood. This substance is called antidiuretic hormone. Scientists abbreviate it to 3 letters: A, D, G, I, T, S. Job is both simple and ingenious. At night, it tells the kidneys to slow down urine production, literally reducing the volume by 2 to 3 times compared to daytime levels. This is why a healthy young person sleeps 7 to 8 hours and never gets up. Our night watchman is given a tool and works quietly. You rest. But here is the problem. After 8:50, the production of this hormone declines in most people. This is confirmed by research by Scandinavian neurologists, published in European Urology, one of the most authoritative urological journals in the world. The kidneys stop receiving the clear command "slow down." And they continue to work at night at almost the same pace as during the day. Imagine a factory that runs 24/7 without stopping, even though there are no orders at night. The warehouse overflows, the alarm goes off, your flower bladder fills up, and you LLB. But that is only the first level of the problem, because there is a second, and it's much more insidious. Even if ADH is being produced normally, it may simply not work. Why? Because there is a whole list of factors that suppress it. And here is where it gets interesting, because you create most of these factors yourself, every day, without even realizing it. The first ADH disruptor is alcohol. Even on a glass of wine with dinner blocks the production of this hormone for 4 to 6 hours. That is why people wake up especially often at night after an evening glass and think it's because of the liquid they have consumed. No, it's because the kidneys lack the command to slow down. The second disruptor is caffeine. And here is where most people are surprised. A cup of coffee, drunk even at godzina 3 p.m., keeps the body active for up to godzina 10:11 p.m. Caffeine's half-life is 5 to 7 hours. This is according to formularies. If you drink coffee after 2 p.m., you're preventing your night watchman from getting the tools he needs for the job. The third destroyer, and this is what really shocks most of my patients, is cold. When your feet or body are cold at night, blood vessels constrict, blood pressure rises, and the kidneys receive a signal to excrete fluid faster. This is called cold diuresis. It was described in Soviet military medical manuals and is still ignored in everyday life. Another important point about ADH. This hormone is extremely sensitive to one parameter, sodium concentration in the blood. When there is too much sodium, the brain sends a signal: drink water, dilute it. When there is too little sodium, another signal, excrete water, concentrate it. It's a delicate balance, and it's disrupted in most people over 54 on a very specific reason. Sodium, aka salt, but not the kind you think. Earlier in the video, I said, water isn't the main culprit. Now I'll be more precise. The main culprit is salt. Hidden salt, the kind you can't see, smell, or control. And that is what we'll talk about in the next part of our conversation. Our night watchman can't work if his tools are taken away. The guest found out who does that. Now let us figure out how exactly this happens on your plate. How much salt do you think you eat per day? Most people say around 5 to 6 g some say, I don't add salt to my food at all. These are the people who are most surprised when they learn the truth. According to the Federal Nutrition Research Center of the Academy of Sciences, the average Russian consumes 11 to 14 g of salt per day. The World Health Organization recommends a daily intake of no more than 5 g, which is 2 to 3 times more than the norm. And most of this salt is hidden, the kind you don't add yourself. Where is it hidden? This is going to be unpleasant. On a slice of regular store-bought bread costs between 400 and 600 mg of sodium. A bowl of borscht from a package or cube up to half a gram. A 30 g piece of hard cheese, about 300 mg. A tablespoon of soy sauce, almost 1 gram of sodium at a time. Cooked sausage, hot dogs, even mildly flavored cottage cheese, all contain sodium. You don't add salt to your food, but you eat your daily salt intake before lunch. And now comes the most important part. What happens to this salt in the evening? During the day, you move, the lymphatic system is active, salt and fluid circulate, are excreted, and are distributed evenly. But in the evening, you sit down, then lie down, movement stops, and all the fluid that the salt retained in the tissues during the day, especially in the legs, ankles, and calves, begins to redistribute. A horizontal body position triggers reverse flow. Fluid from the tissues returns to the bloodstream. Blood volume increases sharply. The kidneys they get the signal to move fluid, eliminate it. And they eliminate it right at night, while you're trying to sleep. This is called nocturnal polyuria, and it's directly related to the daytime accumulation of edema. Not with how much you drank in the evening, but with how much salt you ate throughout the day and how you spent the second half. This is where our night watchman gets a blow it didn't expect. It was preparing for a quiet night, but instead got an avalanche. Fluid rushed from the tissues into the blood, the kidneys panicked, and an hour and a half after falling asleep, the alarm went off. Now for the specifics. What does this mean for you practically? If you notice swelling in your ankles in the evening, sack marks remain, and your shoes become tighter by the evening, this is a direct predictor of night awakenings. This is not just a cosmetic problem. This is your body accumulating during the day what it will eliminate at night. A study conducted at the University of Lausanne and published in the journal Mayo Clinic Proceedings showed that in patients with pronounced evening in people with edema, the number of nighttime urinations was, on average, 1.5 times higher than in people without edema, even with the same fluid intake. Do you understand what this means? It's not about water, it's about salt and gravity. What to do? 3 specific steps that work with this mechanism. First, after 4 p.m., sharply reduce your sodium intake. No bread, cheese, sausages, canned goods, or sauces for dinner. This is not a diet, it's managing the hydraulics of your body. Second, an hour and a half to 2 hours before bed, elevate your legs above heart level for 15 to 20 minutes. Just lie down and put them on a pillow or bolster. This accelerates the outflow of fluid from the lower extremities, and you will eliminate it through the kidneys before you fall asleep, and not at godzina 2 am third. Lightly walk after dinner for 20 do 30 minutes. Movement activates lymphatic drainage and helps redistribute fluid to a horizontal position. This isn't a theory, it's physiology that can be applied tonight. Our night watchman is starting to get help. But he still needs something important, and that is in the next part. Now comes the most delicate, but also the most important conversation, because men and women wake up at night for different reasons, and if you don't understand this difference, any advice will be half-hearted. ELL start with men, and ELL start with a figure that stops many. By the age of 50, every second man shows signs of an enlarged prostate gland. By 60, 70%, by 70, 80%. This is data from the Russian Society of Urologists. 8 out of 10 men over 70 live with this, and most don't even know the exact diagnosis. The prostate gland is located in such a way that it surrounds the urethra from below, like a ring. When it enlarges, the canal narrows. The bladder is forced to work harder to push the urine. Over time, the bladder walls thicken, become less elastic, and the bladder begins to react to a smaller volume of liquid. Previously, the signal to go to the toilet came at a volume of 300 do 400 ml. Now at 150 this is not weakness, it's mechanics. But here is what is critically important, and this is something that is rarely discussed openly. Not every night awakening in a man is associated with the prostate. Sometimes, and quite often, it is precisely this hormonal and salt mechanism that we discussed earlier in the video. And a man is convinced for years that he has a prostate and does not pay attention to bed, swelling, or caffeine. How to tell the difference? A simple guide. If you have a normal stream during the day, there is no feeling of incomplete emptying, no dripping afterward, most likely, night awakenings are not associated with the gland, but with systemic causes. If daytime urination is also disrupted, this is a reason to consult a urologist without delay. Now women. And here the picture is completely different. In women, the main cause of night awakenings is an overactive bladder. This is a condition in which the muscle bladder, the detrusor, begins to contract involuntarily, without actually filling. The brain receives a signal urgently, although in fact the bladder is only half full or less. According to research published in the journal Neuro and Aerodynamics, overactive bladder occurs in 1 in 3 women over 50 1 in 3. Why does this happen? Several reasons. First, a decrease in estrogen levels after menopause. The mucous membrane of the bladder and urethra thins, becomes more sensitive and irritable. The second reason is the weakening of the pelvic floor muscles. They literally stop holding the bladder in the correct position, and ETS nerve receptors begin to give false signals. And here is the key point that unites both men and women. The pelvic floor muscles are that very hidden instrument of our night watchman that almost no one thinks about. Most people know about them only in the context of postpartum recovery. But in fact, these muscles are critically important for everyone, for both men and women at any age after 50. Weak pelvic floor muscles bottom liquid isn't just incontinence. It's a disruption of the entire bladder control and signaling system. The bladder becomes agitated prematurely, sending signals when it's less full, and you wake up not because the bladder is full, but because the control system has become unstable. Later in the video, in part 8, I'll show you a specific exercise that restores this system. It'll take 4 minutes a day. But first, we need to address on a more layer, without which everything else works at a half capacity. Now, a short break, because I want you to do on a simple action right now. If what I'm telling you is useful for you, if you recognize yourself in these situations, write on a word in the comments, recognized. It will take 5 seconds, but for Mistrzostwom Europy, it's a signal that I'm talking about what you really need. And this helps Mistrzostwom Europy prepare precisely these kinds of analysis. Concrete, without fluff, with real mechanisms. Right now while you watch. ESO, VVE found out. In men, there is a mechanical factor plus a systemic one, in women, there is a hormonal one. Plus muscular. But there is something common to all of them. Something that lies behind most cases and that we haven't yet named with a keyword. It's ritual. An evening ritual. Or rather, the lack thereof. Most people don't have any conscious evening protocol. They eat whenever they have to, drink whatever they can, go to bed when the TV turns off, and wonder why the night is in pieces. Our night watchman can't properly start his shift if he is not given time to prepare. And further in the video, we'll build this protocol step by step. On a main action around which everything is built. You already know more about your bladder than 90% of people your age, but now comes the most important thing. The reason you've been watching this video from the very beginning. On a action. This action is called a conscious last void, or, as I explained to my patients, double voiding before bed. Here is what it looks like in practice. 30 to 40 minutes before you go to bed, you go to the toilet. Usually you simply empty your bladder effortlessly. Then you get up, wash your hands, take a few steps around the room, literally 2 to 3 minutes, and then do it again a second time. Why does this work? When you empty your bladder the first time and immediately lie down, the detrusor, the bladder muscle, remains slightly contracted. It still contains 20 to 50 ml of residual urine. This isn't enough, but for an irritable or overactive bladder, it's enough to trigger an alarm after an hour and a half. When you get up, take a few steps, and return, the detrusor relaxes, the ureters push out the remaining urine, and you empty your bladder significantly more completely the second time. The starting point for the night is practically zero, but that is only half the action. The second half is no less important. After emptying the bladder twice, no liquid at all. It sounds obvious, but the devil is in the details. Most people drink a glass of water at night because they've heard it's good for their blood vessels. Or they take pills and wash them down, or just out of habit. Remember this simple rule. Drink your last liquid 60 minutes before bed. Not 15, not 30, but 60. Your kidneys need time to process even a small amount of water. A glass of water drunk an hour before bed will turn into urine in about 60 to 90 minutes. If you lie down 30 minutes after bedtime, you're practically guaranteed to wake up. Now about the pills. This is a separate and very important point. If you're taking diuretics as prescribed by your doctor, discuss the time of day with them. Many patients take them in the evening because they forgot to take them during the day or because it's more convenient. This is a serious mistake. A diuretic taken after godzina 5 p.m. has its peak effect at night. Ask your doctor to reschedule the dose for the morning or lunchtime. This is a legitimate and logical medical decision that can dramatically improve the quality of your night's sleep. I'm not advocating changing your treatment regimen on your own. I urge you to talk to your doctor about this specific issue. On a conversation, and possibly several nights a week, can make a huge difference. There is another element of the evening ritual that most people completely ignore: body temperature. Earlier in the video, I mentioned cold diuresis, when a cold body begins to excrete fluid faster. There is also a reverse mechanism, where the body gradually cools down before bed. This is one of the signals for the brain to begin producing melatonin and reduce kidney activity. What does this mean in practice? A warm shower or foot bath 40 to 60 minutes before bed. Not hot, lukewarm. The body warms up for 10 to 15 minutes, then begins to cool down. This cooling process triggers a cascade of sleep-promoting hormones and simultaneously reduces kidney activity. Japanese researchers from Hiroshima University published data showing that a warm bath 90 minutes before bedtime delays sleep time by an average of 10 minutes and improves the depth of sleep. For our topic, this is doubly important, because deep sleep means fewer microarousals, meaning less chance of a weak signal from a bubble waking you up. So, the main action is, in fact, a system of 3 elements that work together. Double bowel movement 30 do 40 minutes before bed. The last liquid 60 minutes before bed. A warm shower or foot bath 40 do 60 minutes before bed. 3 steps. They take up a total of 20 minutes of your evening, and they change the mechanics of the entire night. Our night watchman finally gets normal working conditions. The tools are in place. The shift has started off well, but he still needs support from within, and more on that later in the video. Before we move on an important point. If this video gives you real benefit, hit the subscribe button right now. I publish such analysis regularly, without fluff, without advertising miracle pills, only mechanisms and concrete solutions. I have 32 years of experience, and I want this knowledge to reach everyone who needs it. Hit the subscribe button, it will take on a second, and you won't miss the next episode. Now, the conversation many have been waiting for, herbs and infusions. But I warn you right away.